And now for an eXplorminate interview. Stay tuned.
Welcome to an eXplorminate interview podcast. I am your host, Rob. And joining me tonight is Drexy. Welcome to the show, Drexy.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
It's going well, man. We have a full house tonight. We are joined by, the entire studio of Proxy Studios. Welcome to the show. Would you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Dan Griliopoulos. I'm a writer for the studio.
I'm Rock, and I'm doing design and programming.
I'm Sohail. I'm, in charge of the graphics, visual artist.
And I'm Lawrence, also a designer and programming.
I'm really glad to have all of you guys here. It's really cool to see you guys all here too. I've probably never had this many guests on a show, which is pretty cool. So we're here to talk about your newly announced 4X Zephon, which I have to admit I'm really excited about because personally I've been screaming to the gods about wanting a post-apocalyptic 4X game for as long as I can remember, maybe as long as eXplorminate's been alive. And you just recently announced a couple weeks ago that Zephon would be coming late 2022. And so I wanted to get you guys on and see what we could wrangle out of you. So first things first, what is Zephon?
Like Zephon the game or Zephon the being?
Okay, I'll be more specific. Tell me what Zephon, the 4X game, is going to be.
Well, okay, so Zephon is going to be our next 4X game. And what we are doing with it, after having done games like Pandora and Gladius, is to bring the social and also the diplomatic aspects and try to combine them with what made Gladius great. That is a lot of different unit abilities and very deep tactical combat. And to make this blend of having a narrative for X in our own custom or in our own post-apocalyptic setting that is also having all these weird cyberpunky or kind of fantastical influence, Cthulhian aspects to it.
Oh man, you mentioned Cthulhu and all of a sudden, I was already excited, but this sounds awesome. So then can you kind of set up the background here of what exactly, you said it's post-apocalyptic, but can you tell us a little bit about why we're here in this game? What's happened to get us to a post-apocalyptic setting?
Essentially, the world has got to a point where it's the near future. An alien race has traveled millennia across the stars because of a prophecy to reach Earth because it believes that Earth will be the end of life in the universe. And they have got here and they've attempted to destroy all life on Earth, and everything has gone dreadfully wrong for them, for us, and for the planet. And you play as a group of humans who have somehow survived this apocalyptic event and are coming out into a world to discover that nobody is doing well, basically. That the aliens are barely surviving in an alien atmosphere and on an alien world. Humanity is struggling. The few survivors are picking their ways through the rubble. And that AIs have emerged which helped frustrate the aliens' intentions, but now are as much a threat to humanity as the aliens are themselves. And you have choices there about how you tackle these foes, how you try and survive, and I guess essentially how you work out the future of humanity and the universe. That's us.
Wow, that's really well said, I think. And he pointed out an excellent dilemma between the AI or the intelligent machines that emerge and these alien species. And one of the main themes, I think, is how to navigate between the two and deciding who you're going to side with, whose tech you're going to follow or absorb into your own, or are you going to stay true to humanity and the human values.
Sounds excellent. Is there more than one human faction, or is it just one human faction that's left?
Depends what you call a faction, but essentially there are multiple, because there's multiple leaders following different, or people following different leaders. So humanity is split apart because of survival, right? They have to struggle, there's limited resources, and they cling to whoever they know, whoever was closest to them, or whoever's true to their beliefs.
So will it be a case that maybe one group of humans follow the more from the AI side, while there'll be another that are more into the alien tech and stuff like that?
For sure, yeah.
I don't think it's even as simple as that. It's they can affiliate to both. They can go one way or another, and they all have their own characteristics as well. So the leaders are almost mutators on how your group of humans behaves, and then how there are lots of other ways that you can customize your group of humans. Basically, does that seem fair, Rock?
Yeah, and it's even further. It's also how other humans react to you, because they'll all have different likes and dislikes, which will impact how you're gonna relate to them, or how your standing will be with them and theirs with you.
Right. So it kind of sounds like, in the traditional 4X sense, you initially start with choosing a leader over necessarily a faction. Is that how this works?
Yeah, you could look at it like that.
Okay, cool. So why did you guys decide to, you've come off, of course, I would say well-received, mostly Pandora. And then, of course, Gladius kind of puts you guys in a new stratosphere. Everybody likes Gladius. And now you've kind of come back to what seems like a very original 4X idea. So what made you guys decide to maybe, pull back a bit and decide to go a more traditional 4X?
To be honest, I think each of us had their own reasons to do it.
Good point, yeah.
For me, basically, it was like when we were doing Pandora, there was a lot of stuff we couldn't do. We were getting started. We were trying to build a game engine and just doing our best to create the best game we could with the circumstances we had. And then in Gladius, the game engine started really taking shape, and I felt like our hands were a bit more freed. But then again, we were doing a specific IP, so we didn't have the creative freedom that we would have if we're doing our own IP. So there were a bunch of leftover ideas for me and designs and stuff I wanted to try out. And then now we basically can't do that. So I'm just going crazy with all of the harebrained ideas I had along the way.
That's awesome. So with that, okay, you guys, you fall back and you're like, all right, we've kind of established ourselves. We've gained some momentum with our ability to program and make a game, and you're coming back to making a game that you have a bit more freedom with. But how much have you guys already set up? Have you guys already storyboarded? Or at least kind of set the foundation for exactly what you want to do? Are you still in the early stages of development? Where are you with regards to making this game?
I think we're actually, there's still stuff that has to be decided, of course, but we have our design documents. This project is also, it's a cooperation with a Euro Media Group, so it has a grant, and it is co-financed by the European Union. So we had to already bring a proposal, we have a milestone plan and everything in order, of course. And we are working very nicely along that way. We are also trying to make an early prototype as fast as possible, so that you can already get a very good impression from how the earlier tiers play out. Try to make that as complete as possible. And a lot of the design is already done. We are churning through the units. So we don't want to overpromise any timelines. That's always the hard thing. That's why we also took a bit of a safe side here. But I think it's going along quite nicely.
A lot of design documents, aren't there? So there's a lot of stuff's already been written and designed and redesigned and rewritten. So we quite a lot on one side already.
Nice. All right. Well, would someone mind telling me basically how a game will play out? So can you kind of walk me through the beginning stages? Is it closely following the 4X formula? Are you starting off and developing a city and expanding and all that? Can you tell me a little bit about how the game flow works?
Yeah, sure. To start off, you're going to choose your leader, which is going to determine a plethora of things. How you start off, it might change anything from the starting units or your starting abilities or any other things we might still come up with. I'm really excited about that part. It's also going to have, as I said, a bio of the background of the leader and what he stands for and doesn't. So you can feel like you're playing the particular person, because that's really important to us. But yeah, it will quite a traditional 4X in the sense that, or let me put it this way, I think we're super proud of the merciless nature of the wildlife in Gladius. And I think I speak for everyone that we're going to try to keep that and maybe even kick it up a notch and bringing even more of the flavor and survival aspect and a little bit of horror and doom to it. So yeah, in the beginning stages, you're going to find your city, you're going to explore a little, you're going to figure out how far you can go because it's going to be scary. You're going to discover the different features of the world and how it's changed and how the apocalypse impacted it, what the remains are. You're going to meet this neutral NPC leaders, which is something we didn't have in Gladius, which I'm pretty excited by as well. Some will represent the aliens, some will represent Zephon, the AI overlord faction, and some will represent the humans. And you're going to have to decide who you align with, who you don't. So this would be more like where we introduce diplomacy to a large degree, and also the quest system, which is another big thing we can talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Like we do have like an event system. We're gonna make it very sandboxy this time, like where you will have like regularly pop up events, and like they can result in missions or objectives. They can result in like modifiers for your entire faction. Like in emergencies, it's certain like cities and whatnot. They also change your standing, like how you align or how your faction kind of unfolds. Like you will gain traits like based on your decisions, which will be referenced in like used again or have an impact in later events or your interaction up to like the very end of the story. So we want to make the whole environment like feel very alive and dangerous and like vivid. And as Rock said, like also the survival aspect and the feature, we really want to push it. Like you will see lots of strange features so that whenever you start to explore out, you're like, oh, what the hell is this? And what the hell is this? Yeah, so we are putting a lot of effort into creating this alien world. So these are all in the making currently, and people will see more and more of those with shots as the months go by.
So I'd say on the survival aspect that the thing that most reminds, obviously all games are, it's quite hard to come up with original ideas these days, but all games are riffing off things we've seen elsewhere. But the survival aspect, you might look back to things like Stalker, where you're going out into an unknown world and looking at that world and trying to understand it and trying to work out the ways you can survive in that world, considering how hostile it is in unexpected ways. And also what Lauren said there about the way that you kind of build up tags, that your leaders start with kind of traits and that you can gain more traits by doing these quest things. It kind of feeds into a concept of, I don't think we've talked about it explicitly internally, but maybe something like systematic interaction, where different, in traditional 4Xs, the systems kind of run in parallel. You kind of build up your army and you're doing your research, but they are feeding into each other, but it's a very, you know exactly how that feeding in is going to happen, whereas having that trait system for your leaders on the quest stuff feeding into those other systems, it gets a lot more complex and a lot less predictable on what you're going to be doing and where you're going with the game. So it pulls away from that traditional 4X side. And I'd say generally it looks like a traditional 4X, but it's not going to be if we get our way, if we do the design stuff we want to do.
Yeah. There's a lot more RPG elements, so it's a bit more of a blend there that we want to stand out with.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of like, based on the choices you make and based on your development, like the development of your character or the leader that you've embodied, that you may be presented with certain options and stuff later on in the game based on the choices you've made. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, definitely. That's a huge thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd say maybe something like FTL is another kind of milestone for us, is a non-traditional narrative told through sandboxy interactions. Like FTL has no plot. It just has an awful lot of events that pop up and give you an idea of where the world's been, where the world's going, and where you're going. So that's an inspiration, certainly.
And I think all of that runs parallel with the technology tree, in which you'll be very directly picking which path you want to go through, if that's the AI, the voice, or the alien, or the human tech. And that's going to both very explicitly, graphically change how your armies and cities will look like, but also functionally, right? Because they will play very different and they will have different connotations to them with different abilities and different focus and weaknesses and strengths.
Resources, yeah.
Even resources, yeah. It's another pretty big thing that we expanded on from Gladius, having production chains where one resource transfers into another, and you'll need that to build like the most fearsome and powerful units.
Wow. Okay. So that kind of reminds me of Beyond Earth, like how each, like as you start to go down like an ideology pathway, your units look different. Your like entire, like, I don't know, everything about your culture starts to look different as a result. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like if I decide that I'm going to really lean into alien technology, then my civilization starts to look more like an alien civilization and my units start to look more alien. And, I might even have like some weird alien headdress on or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. It's Beyond Earth dialed up to 100 because it's not just gonna slightly change the armor of your troopers or something. You're gonna have entirely different units, which might consist of Cthulhian creatures or totally cybernetic, ghost-walking assassins. So totally different paths you can go on.
Due to the nature of 40k, Gladius didn't have any diplomacy, and this time around you will have diplomacy. Can you just go into how that works in this game? Would it just be like trading, or can you absorb other factions into your faction? How does diplomacy work in?
Okay, so for diplomacy, we want to have like a narrative or role play aspect. So basically, all of the leaders, you will have talk and conversations. It's all going to be written out to be as immersive as possible. And I have to also say that we are like a combat-focused game. So it's going to be not that easy to make new friends. Like people are going to be a bit distrustful. You have to earn their trust or support. But we also want you to give you the option to kind of manipulate other like NPC leaders to go against third parties. Like that is something we really want to push hard. So you can kind of spin those intrigues and like forge those alliances. And you obviously have your trading pacts that work with the resources. And due to all the different resources and all the different branches, it gives you like better partners for some, depending on if they have maybe access to that resource you need to bring that sort of complexity that adds somewhat. But also these leaders will be their personalities, like back to the trade system or event system. They will interact based on what choices you had in events, what traits you gained, like what traits you started with, what your ideologies are, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's going to be like immersive role play like, but it will have obviously gameplay implications, and you can form pacts and alliances.
I think there's also an interesting dynamic between the quest system and diplomacy, which in Gladius might have presented some difficulties because when a quest arrived, you could never temporarily make friends with your neighbors to finish that quest. Well, this will be a possibility here. So I think they will go very well together to get the strengths of each.
Yeah, I'd say it's also a way of like traditional diplomacy systems in 4Xs tend to be either gameable or quite often irrelevant. Like if you're strong, then you're kind of ahead anyway. If you've got an arbitrary diplomatic advantage, then you lead on diplomacy and you can force people to do things which don't make sense for them to do. So this kind of, by using the trait system, by having them react to events, things you've explicitly chosen to do, we're making it so that your diplomacy system is these people seeming to react to the history of the world that you've created.
That's really good to hear because, diplomacy a lot of the time in 4X game is, like you said, it's very gameable and it's not really done very well. So it's cool that you've sort of added the RPG aspect into the diplomacy.
I think it's even more than that. I don't know that we want to reveal it right now, but the story has a progress in a way, and it will end with a certain event. And how you, but it all ties in with diplomacy and how you choose your friends and your actions, right? So it like all goes really deeply together in portraying the experience and how the game would develop for you. So,
but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, not quite yet. Yeah.
I look forward to hearing about it. Well, can you tell me a little bit more about Zephon? So it sounds like you've named this game after the AI. It's now kind of up and coming, and I guess after like kind of rise from the ashes of this failed alien invasion. And so can you tell us a little bit more about this faction and specifically like what their intentions are?
So essentially the alien invasion wasn't really stopped by the humans. The aliens arrived and they have overwhelming power because they have been traveling for millennia just to do this one thing, and inspired by these prophecies they received from this mysterious source they call the Voice. and they get to Earth and they are stopped, and it is implied that the thing that has stopped them is this Zephon. But by the time you come out of your bunker, your faction has organized enough to come out into the world again and survive. Zephon is a very fragmented set of AI things, or a thing, and it's quite hard to know what it is, how much of a threat it was, beyond knowing that it was a thing that for a second or a few minutes, in that time it had a kind of enough time to kind of defeat these aliens and then fell apart itself. So you're kind of trying to explore what this AI is, and the thing that you seem to be talking to, which seems to call itself Zephon in the diplomacy side, which is one of the NPCs, is weird and friendly, and it's a bit kind of Chinese roomy. You can't really tell if this thing is conscious or whether it's a chatbot. And a chatbot that ran the world for a couple of minutes and defeated a trans-galactic alien race. That's the best way I can phrase Zephon.
Powers going to war against each other, and it's basically mutually assured destruction. And humanity is kind of stuck in between. And when you come out, they're trying to rebuild and you're trying to rebuild, and it's like this race for who gets the upper hand. And I don't want to say much more than that, I guess.
No, that's cool.
But yeah, Zephon is one of the superpowers.
Right. In a world of like superpowers that have clearly lost their superpower. So
yes, exactly.
So there's like this power vacuum, right? From what I understand, like everybody who's kind of, the humans, of course, they sheltered, they sounds like they like went to fallout shelters and basically like try to do what they could to survive this, upcoming calamity. And then you have your aliens who did their best and they're kind of straggling too. And then you have your AI. And so it's like, now it's time for everybody to kind of like gather their forces and try to suck up that power. Is that kind of where it's at?
Yeah, precisely.
Awesome. That sounds awesome.
Pretty much. There's a pretty big power vacuum.
Great. Well, so then that was going to be one of my questions too, is like, it sounds like in this game, you're not given the option to play as like an alien or robot faction, right? You're simply a human leader, which of course there's some, variance and asymmetry to the leaders that you choose. And then, you go off and you try to rebuild the human empire though, right?
Yes. There's a caveat there that we may explore giving leaders that are not essentially human. They could be a robot. They could even be like an alien that turned to the human side. So we want to explore those options as well. But you would still start off, or you would still represent humanity, I think.
At least at the start, yeah. And then later on you choose and travel down the branches, and then like at least once you're further down the line of either path, like either the voice or the cybernetic, there won't be much looking human anymore in the end. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. You might not even be human at the end.
That's cool. I like that a lot. Well, so I think that, if we could go back to Gladius for just a brief second, sure. With Gladius, you guys did an amazing job of making each faction feel very, and I think that comes with the lore, right? The Warhammer lore is that they are very asymmetric factions and they have their strengths, and that's why there is this eternal war that never ends. But you guys did a great job of actually implementing that in the gameplay. So do you plan on making your leaders as asymmetric, or I guess how do you go about making them as asymmetric? I know you talked about traits and stuff like that, but are they going to have particular like super affinities that make them maybe play differently than any other leader?
I think you need to think about it slightly different than in Gladius or in other 4Xs, because you have two parallel things. One is the leaders, which determines your traits and superpowers and standings with other and like personalities and so on. And on the other hand, you have these three paths or these three branches: humanity, cyber, and voice. So if you look at Gladius in each of the factions, that would be more similar to one of the paths, because each path has very, very unique units. It has special operations as well. It has unique buildings. It has all sorts of things. But at the same time, you also have leaders, which are a modifier into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What you're saying basically is that like the three paths are the more maybe wildly branching, very asymmetric gameplay paths that you can take. But, the leader kind of can compound that or make it, make it stronger, maybe kind of complement it in some ways, and so on and so forth, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The leaders will have their own abilities, and there will be upgrades for their abilities. So they will definitely play different and result in like different strategies or strengths and weaknesses and whatnot. Like definitely more than we had in, for example, in Pandora, but not to the level we had in Gladius.
So with the 3 paths, do you take one and then you're stuck on that path, or can you sort of weave between them?
Yes, you can very much weave between them. That is like actually one of the cool things, that like the paths have like a large unit roster, like their own individual rosters. And it can be like, you could maybe go very deep in one direction based on your starting resources and what you find and how you build. Or you can combine and like pick and choose between the paths to give like really strange looking compositions, but certain units might synergize very well. Like we made upgrades, like that is one of the things in Gladius that often we have like also you go, for example, infantry, or you go vehicles and whatnot, or heroes. And it might be like, shouldn't I just put everything onto one, right? Just go maximum infantry. Is it like really worth the investment going in the other direction? And with Zephon, like we do have upgrades which give certain combinations or promote certain crossplay combinations between the paths and between the units. And it will be up to the players to find out like what works very well. I guess one could think a bit of like Magic, the Gathering, with the different colors which have the different strength and play different, and what you can combine and what synergies you can build. That is something we definitely are very excited about.
So basically you could have like a robot top with alien legs or powered legs or something like that, or acid spitters, a robot with acid spitters. That sounds cool.
Yeah. Like different troop formations can definitely mix and match very nicely to give strange looking compositions.
It's worth saying as well that given the way that the combat works, which is probably the secret sauce of the studio really, is the kind of strong tactical combat and the heavy asymmetry. Given that the units have like a variety of weapons, it can take a little while for you to work out what the best way to deploy different units is and how they could work together. And it, like as we've seen with Balancing Gladius over the years, it's like we don't always get how these units are going to be used and how people are going to play with them. So if you've got the option to basically make a customizable faction out of a whole bunch of different units, then players are going to surprise us, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and speaking of combat, and I know that really has been your strength. I think most people that are really big fans of 4X gaming say that Gladius, perhaps some of the best combat in all of 4X gaming. So I'm curious to know how you guys are going to maybe iterate on that, and how maybe you're going to take that system that works very well for Warhammer, and maybe are you going to add any systems to that, or maybe iterate on it to make it, maybe more tactical in any way?
Like, I think on the one hand, with the unit abilities, like Gladius has already a lot of different abilities, but with Zephon, we are really trying to push it the limit, one might say. Like because like Sohail, like I said, like he had designs, we have like full creative freedom, so we can come up with really strange creations, and especially with very advanced machine technology, like the sci-fi aspect or the more fantastical, mystical aspect of the voice, you can have really crazy ideas like that will, I'm sure, play out very, very fantastically when in players' hands. But yeah, I think like that's an angle we're definitely trying to push further.
Very cool, guys. If you wouldn't mind, I want to switch gears to the economy. And you guys have mentioned strategic resources a few times, and I'm just curious to know about them. And, it sounds like you'll need different strategic resources depending on which path you take. Could you tell us more about that?
Yep, that's exactly it. Some of them you'll gather just by exploring, either through different ruins you discovered that were left alone. From that, you can get either resources or items or all sorts of other money. We want to push that further as well. But in terms of resources, yeah, you'll start up with pretty basic ones like food and minerals and energy. And then as you go deeper into one of the 3 paths, you'll discover that to conjure the voice, you maybe need algae, or like further on, like dimensional echoes. And you'll need to combine the resources into the right ones to build the special units.
So you did mention earlier on with the resources, it's not just you have one resource and that makes an item. You said it's sort of like a supply chain almost, and you build something out of one resource which builds into another. Is that correct?
Yep. We're actually really excited to see how that plays out, because in Gladius, that's also a strength of doing one set of technologies that everyone can go for, rather than having fully asymmetric and split factions. There's a lot of benefits to each side, and we're discovering more and more benefits to having a merge tree where you can combine all these things and have all these sorts of trade-offs and more resources and, as I said, things you combine to get stronger things. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out in terms of how strong it is, what the limits are, how far we can push it, and so on.
Yeah, I mean the research tree, it's gonna be massive. Yeah, how fast people break it, exactly. Find the good paths that work well.
Well, that's when we start doing more balanced stuff, isn't it? It is constantly nerfing to make sure that there's a lot of different viable paths for people to play, to keep it so that players, when they're doing multiplayer, are surprising each other. That's a nice aim, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been designing the tech tree over the last days or at least the first third of the tech tree with Lawrence in the last weeks. And it's becoming really massive. And also in terms of resources and resource buildings, we're going for very interesting techs, I think, that manipulate how the buildings work depending on which buildings you have. So if you grab a certain tech, it might change how your resource building works if you have this other resource building, or it might change how the conversion of resource happens. So I'm really excited to explore that space, which we haven't been able to so far.
That's actually the first I've heard of that. So I'm
Scoop. We got a scoop.
Just to check, is that kind of like Industries of Titan or Factorio or things like that, where the kind of buildings feed into each other or affect each other's behavior then?
Not to that explicit degree, but it will be a modifier which modifies things like that. Yes. We still want to be predominantly a combat game, right? We don't want to build a factory. But
one has to be careful not to go too far. Like, we want to push it further. Like, we want to see that there are synergies between the buildings. But one also has to be too careful that your city management doesn't eat up all of the time and it turns into a full simulation. So that's always the difficulty with game design, finding the right balance.
Yeah, and I think with technologies, you don't have to research it if you don't want to go that way. Like, you can just stick to building units and just build 3 times the amount of simple buildings, and I mean, you'll do fine, I think.
I think that's the first time we've had a dev team ask their own team a question.
It's rapid iteration. I've been asking Grok things on chat today where I was like, are we still doing that? Are we doing this? And this is bizarre because obviously I'm asking this, but I have been playing the game relatively recently, which I'm surprised that we have a version of the game that's already working and we've just got lots of time to iterate, and games benefit so much from iteration, playtesting, repeat, just that loop to find that polish and to make something you're proud of.
Yeah, something that I just actually, I know you guys are probably all familiar with Soren Johnson, but I interviewed him not too long ago, and he says that that's his main design philosophy, is to get something up real quick and then start iterating on it, because you got to find the fun, right? You got to find what works, and you can only do that by playing it and figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and the quicker you have something going, the better and easier that is to find, he says.
Yeah, it's exactly what we're working towards right now, and we want to have a vertical slice of the first third of the game, at least in broad aspects, done by the end of this year. So we want to get that out and playing as soon as possible, at least internally.
I was about to say, cool.
But we're such a small team, though, because we can make pretty quick changes, just because we don't have 10 different concepts artists doing something and 10 different modelers modeling stuff. So I feel like because we're such a small team, we can be a bit more agile when it comes to making quick decisions and going down a slightly different path.
Yeah, I think Sohail's even underestimating it. I think we can be a lot more agile.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I want to come back to just a quick, maybe to help me understand it, I was going to give you an example of what I think what you're trying to say is, so as you start your civilization and you're starting to branch out and you're in this just crazy, scary world, you start to maybe uncover some, local resources, and maybe one of them's like something like titanium. And, as, maybe titanium is something that maybe the Zephon would appreciate, or like that Zephon tree might gear towards. And so you're like, all right, cool. Since I have so much Zephon or so much titanium around, maybe it would be a good idea strategically to start taking on some of the Zephon tech and then go from there, right? Is that what I'm getting?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, that makes it so that map generation plays almost as much of a role in your overall strategy as what you were going to do anyways. So that's pretty cool.
Especially in multiplayer. That'll make a big difference in multiplayer when people are logging, like they appear and they go, oh, well, I normally play this way. I normally go more the voice side, but I can't do that this time. So I'm going to have to experiment, and forcing people out of their comfort zone is a great way of getting more interesting multiplayer games going.
Yeah, and super cool in co-op as well, because you can have one player go one way and the other guy is like, oh, should I go the same way with you? Should we trade, or should I go this other way? Like, let's combine the forces and do both branches. How do the two branches interact if we do them together? Like, how can we make this overpowered combination? How can we find it?
Moving on to cities, we did discuss it a little bit, but how large do your cities get, and how many cities can you make? Or is it just one city and a bunch of outposts? Can you go into detail how that works?
Yeah, we definitely want to keep that there are multiple cities. Currently in Gladius, it's like usually between 2 and 3. Like for Zephon, we probably want to push it up a little bit so that there's a bit more you can focus on the infrastructure side, because we also have, like I said, due to the large tech tree, right? And like there's a lot to traverse, so it is also more content to go through. So you have a bit more time to build up your things. There come like more advanced buildings, unlike in Gladius. So yeah, there will be more cities, but we're also going to try to keep it manageable, because obviously if you have like this large world and like 2 large armies, it can become a bit of a problem. And we are like thinking about like how we tackle that, like especially in the later stages of the game, because that is always a problem in 4X. So on the one hand, we want to do it like with an event system to bring events in. On the other hand, we are currently experimenting and thinking about like options to kind of help out these late decisions that could come up if we have some sort of governor or like some other agency. But yeah, not sure about that one yet. It's still in discussion.
One super cool thing for me about cities is that it'll really reflect the buildings you build. You know, like in RTSs, when you build a barracks, that's barracks, and that city has 10 barracks, like, well, that's like a city that's going to pump out infantry.
Cool. So if you even like scouring the enemy, you sort of kind of know what they're up to as well.
Yeah, and you'll know, did they go voice, or like their city looks all super weird. They're doing like a weird strat or like a voice strat, right?
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah, much like Gladius, you're building on hexes around your like main city hub.
Yep.
Yes. We were very happy with how that worked out in Gladius, and we want to keep that aspect for Zephon.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, I really like that. And another thing that I genuinely like about Gladius is just how you guys manage city management. It felt like it was the pacing was perfect for me, and that I never felt like I was micromanaging them, but I also felt like every time I went to queue up something, it was important, and I was generally gatekeeped at some level. Like there was something that was keeping me from just spamming like 42, like boys from the orcs, right? Like I always needed to make very thoughtful decisions, and I hope that you guys can relay that and bring that over. So one more question I had about cities, and then I think we're going to wrap up, unfortunately, because I have like 40 questions I want to ask. But
we can do it again.
Great, that's great. Well, so another thing you're talking about, like the late game of a 4X, and I've always had a struggle with that, because I feel like as you do add more cities and you start to add to queues and stuff like that, it does become a bit micromanagement heavy. And so my question is, you mentioned, possibly adding governors and stuff like that, but also, are there any plans to make maybe the development of city or founding of cities kind of, unique in that they require a specific set of resources or a specific set of food source or something like that? I mean, I imagine in a post-apocalyptic world, it's kind of hard to find food. So maybe that would be like, there's only certain spots you can find cities. Is something like that being implemented?
There's 2 elements to that, I guess. There's the way we've always in kept how you can build cities by kind of putting limits on the productivity of cities if you build too many. Definitely, there was a kind of morale factor. I think I'm right in that, on iRock.
Yeah, loyalty.
It holds you back if you build too many. But there's also a kind of general ethos that we want to have, which is when we're doing design work looking at 4Xs, is how do we make quality of life improvements to these games? Like, the problem with 4Xs is that you get to the end game and you're managing 100 cities and they're all telling you to build new things, and you get to the end of a game of Civ and you're just ending up spending more time managing the cities and then hitting end turn than you are actually doing the fun bits of the game. So we're constantly thinking about ways of amping up the fun bits and reducing the micro, like we've talked about, like getting rid of a lot of the minor creeps towards the end game, so that you don't have to go be wandering around managing them when you want to be fighting the big baddies and stuff. There's design elements we can bring in basically to speed up the creation of the management of cities, or to eliminate that bit in the end game, to accelerate towards an end game rather than trudging towards it.
And I think this brings it also back to leaders, and how, depending on what you choose, that might change how you're going to manage the economy. We still want to do a one city leader, because we can definitely do that. And we might also do leaders that have either a more limited set of resources, or traditionally have more cities, less cities, and things like that. So you can find the play style that fits you.
I know Rob wants to wrap up, but I did want to, and this is a combat focus 4X game, so I did want to ask about your armies and how large do they get, or is it limited because of limited resources? And what sort of units do you get? Is there, I presume, vehicles, maybe flying vehicles, or is it mostly infantry? How do armies work basically in this game?
You will have a lot of things like infantry, like hovering units, like flying units, like the weirdest creations that Cybernetica or like your voice mysticism can conjure up. There is, of course, upkeep, and like these special units, like they said, they do need resources. So you kind of have to pick carefully what kind of elite units you want with these resources, and maybe fill the ranks then with more traditional units, or like the lower tier units. That is also one of the things, like in Gladius, that some of the earlier units get kind of out of, like they lost focus or couldn't compete anymore. Mm-hmm. And we definitely now want to also have that, like you get really advanced units, but due to the resource restrictions, maybe you still have to carry some old ones along. But also we are making like upgrades for all units. There's not going to be a single unit where you can't like do upgrades and augment it in some way to give it new abilities or weapons and whatnot. So yeah, it will be very customizable, and you will see a very wide range of things like all over.
And also we want to visualize. We want to visualize all those upgrades. So if you research a shield on your trooper, you're going to see it. If you research like a med pack, at least you're going to see like a little backpack improvement, or like a mine layer you're going to see like an extra hatch pop up or something like that.
And again, it's all in service of not wasting your time, so that you don't want to be having these units hanging around that you can't bear to get rid of. Everything has to be useful. So having those tech tree upgrades in the end game that kind of turn your basic troopers into something much more deadly for end game units is a nice boon. This gives you another sudden twist and changes players' strategies.
That all sounds great, and it sounds like you're going to be putting Lawrence and Sully to work a lot, because I hear visual upgrades and visual representation a lot. So, it sounds like you're going to be working really hard on all those visual upgrades and visual representations.
Oh yeah,
that's a really big focus.
Yeah,
that's great to hear. Well, gentlemen, I like I said, I could ask you questions all day. This sounds, I mean, I felt like if I were talking to a group that maybe we're just getting started on 4X games, I would say this sounds way too good, right? Like there's just no way, because all this sounds like it's really iterating on 4X in general, right? Like the ideas behind 4X and some of the systems that 4X have kind of stuck to for way too long, and in all of our opinions, really. You guys seem to be like taking those ideas and saying, nope, we're going to do something different with that. We're going to make diplomacy more, more lore based and more of a quest, and, more, almost like a narrative. And, actually we're going to do this cool thing with units where, everything looks different. And, this would all sound crazy if it weren't you guys. So, I mean, and I say that because I really feel like you guys have really stepped up your game over the last couple of games that you've made, and you're clearly, maturing into a really great development studio. So I really I can't tell you how excited I am for this game. Can you guys just go ahead and send over a copy or what?
Thank you very much. That's very, very good to hear. Very encouraging.
Yeah. Now we just need to keep making it. We need to finish
it. yeah, please. Let's let. Yeah, I don't want to jinx anything. You guys need to keep making this. All right, this game isn't good yet. All right, just make it good. So, but yeah, no, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to answer all of our questions. I know that we thankfully skirted the line between maybe asking too much. You were able to answer our questions in a way that wasn't promising anything or over promising anything. It sounds great, but I think that. With the right amount of time and really honestly, you guys clearly have the skills and the talent. So I'm really excited, and I just want to take the time to thank you again for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was awesome.
Thank you. Yes.
Cheers, that was lovely.
Yep.
Great. Well, this is Rob Drexley and all of Proxy Studios. Or actually, is this all of you guys, or is it?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. I don't want to say. I was about to say that, and I was like, crap. I don't want to sign off that way and be wrong. This is Rob Drexley and Proxy Studios for eXplorminate. Until next time, keep exploring.